Well, so to answer this question, this is going to be kind of a long and boring discussion. So I would tell anybody, if you don't have an attention span, like, dude, there are probably college kids lighting farts on fire or something that you can watch. Like, this is not going to be for you. This is the question. It's a big question, and it's probably not going to fit in this video, but I'm going to try and condense it down. It depends on how far back you want to go with land ownership and home ownership. In other words, really, on the broader sense, the concept of ownership, the idea of ownership. An idea of ownership, concept of ownership is not really taught almost anywhere anymore, particularly young people. It's almost not taught anywhere in this world, except for maybe that country in the Middle East that starts with an I that we can't talk about, because if I say the name of it, then the algorithm gets all fucked up. But yeah, they teach concept of ownership there, I promise you. But everywhere else, they don't teach concept of ownership. And so let's go back to the original. Let's go back to just recent history. Okay, so the U.S. We're not going to go back into hallowed antiquity here. We'll just go back to recent history in the U.S. And there was, how did you become a landowner? How did you become, seriously, how did you become a landowner in like 1805? How did you become a landowner? You went about 5 miles west, 10 miles west, and you found some land that nobody was using, nobody was there, and because nobody had any money, right? Like, most people didn't have any money. Or there's this idea that everybody else has like tons and tons of money. No, they really don't. They just had labor, right? Their own labor. So you go 5-10 miles west, you find some land that nobody's on, and you just go tell the county, hey, I'm going to take this because there's nobody here. And then you have to defend it, right, from the natives who claim ownership of that land. Okay? This is an old argument, and this is an interesting argument. In America in particular, this is a big issue. And we've worked it out, since then. And the fact is that, like, natives can do whatever they want now. I mean, like, come on. They're not second-class citizens. American natives they are every bit as American as everybody else. So, and most of the bloodlines now are all interwoven anyway. So, but suffice it to say, if you go back historically, that's how you did it. You just said, okay, nobody's here, I'm going to take this because there's nobody here. And original common law, which that's kind of where that goes back to. It goes back about 1,000 years, seriously, into squatters' rights. The whole bit goes back to the Norman fucking conquest. I mean, it goes back, way back. That says that, like, yeah, I mean, I guess whoever's there, if they're there, and they say it's theirs, and they're living there, they're actively living there and using it, well, then it's theirs. That's where it comes from. Even the founders of the U.S. recognized that, by the way, just so you know. Even the founders recognize that's why it's in the law. That's why so-called squatters' rights are in the law. I know a bunch of right-wing cocksuckers don't like that, but it's the truth. Even the left-wing, limousine liberals and stuff hate that shit too. So that's why they're bosom buddies. That's why they're all fucking fake and everything. Now, you want to talk to the real guys, you talk to the guys that are actually on the fucking ground. And yeah, I mean, if you see a piece of land, for example, like right in front of me, there's a big piece of land. Nobody's been there. Nobody's done anything with it. Since Oregon became a state, I just happen to be in Oregon. Like, no one's done anything with that. If someone were to come along and say, okay, well, nobody's here, I'm just going to fence this off and do something with it, what would happen to them? Right? Because they're like, I'm poor, I'm going to go do something with this. Well, what happened to them? Oh, you can't do that. So-and-so owns this. Well, the real solution would be, you're not going to like my answer, but the real solution would be like, well, are they here? Are they doing anything with this land? Because if they're not, it's mine. I'm here. I'm armed as anybody else, which, by the way, is why you're supposed to be as heavily armed as any military. Cruise missiles and everything. I'm not joking about that. And say, okay, listen, Piglet, you're telling me to leave the land that I'm actually conquering. So I'm going to strap you to a cruise missile and shove you up someone's ass. That's exactly what's supposed to happen, just so you know. I told you, you're not going to like my answer. Because that's the reality. The United States and this world, for the most part, was never designed to be behind the idea of claiming private property ownership of everything. Sitting Bull tried that, right? Look what happened to him. I mean, like, they've all tried this shit. Like, this is all ours. Like, imagine if the guy who crossed the, I can't remember his name. He was the first, Westerner Western European to cross the Mississippi. Imagine if he crossed the Mississippi and said, this is now all mine. I'm claiming all of this by right of conquest. Everybody with him would have laughed and said, dude, are you drunk? Probably. This is not, obviously, can you hold all of this land? Probably not. That's where the idea of the rule of law comes in and so on. But it's like, well, keep in mind, rule of law is also tempered with some common sense. And if you're just going to conjure a bunch of fake dollars from nothing, okay, you see where I'm going with this? And then start buying up all this land with counterfeit money, and then say it's all yours. Like, how would that work at a store? If you went into a store and you handed a counterfeit $20 bill to the store, do you get to say, well, no, it's mine, I paid for it? See the problem? See, you see where all this stuff comes together? See how it becomes an issue? See how hypocrisy? Most human beings are hypocrites, which is why I have no respect for them. But there's a difference between normal hypocrisy. You shouldn't smoke, kids. That's like your garden variety I would call it benign hypocrisy. But then there's terminal hypocrisy, which causes problems like we have right now. Huge problems. It builds up after a while, and then it's like, hold on a second here. We need to actually have a discussion here. I'm all about private property, just so you know. I'm all about private property and private property ownership. I'm big on that. In fact, the United States is founded on the idea of private property and private property ownership. So much so that the founders tried to encourage people to own property, to claim the ownership of property in order to vote. Remember, how did you become a property owner? You didn't buy it, you conquered it, right? You went out and paid for it, by watering the tree of liberty, right? That's how you paid for the land. Well, so if you don't want to have, if we don't want to pay for this in blood, then that means you need to be able to say, okay, what are we doing here? Because there's a difference between private personal property and the idea of private property on the broader sense. So are you living there? Are you doing stuff with it? Is it yours? Is it fenced? Are you maintaining it? Right? Or are you just claiming ownership of a bunch of land and then saying no one else can go there? Because that's not really compatible. Really, if you understand, that's really not compatible with all of the laws in the U.S. That's where the term possession is 9/10 of the law. That's where that term comes from. Okay? That's where squatters' rights comes from. That's where all this stuff comes from. That's why when they say, well, we're going to eliminate squatters' rights, let me just explain something to you. You especially the cocksuckers out there, the right-wing cocksuckers that don't have a good argument for anything. You guys all talk a good game, but then when the rubber meets the road, you guys are all fucking talk. But that's when you talk about eliminating squatters' rights, you're talking about trying to undo a 1,000-year-old law that goes back to like the Norman Conquest and back, I believe, back to the Magna Carta. Like that's how old those laws are. That's old British common law stuff that just says, listen, if someone's there and you're not there and you're not doing anything with it, we're not talking about you went to work and you came home and someone's living in your house. Come on, we're not talking about that. Don't be stupid. Don't start going to the fucking comments and being a fucking dumbass, okay? Because you're just going to look like a dumbass. I'm addressing that. No, it's not like that. I'm talking about like where there's legitimately nobody fucking there. And it's obviously abandoned, right? We've seen, you scroll TikTok long enough, you'll see those abandoned mansions. The people who start building these ridiculous mansions, these absurd mansions, these like 40,000 square foot mansions, and then they run out of money and they abandon it and they just fucking leave. And then just like there's weeds growing up in the living room and shit, like, right? It's obviously abandoned. Like that's the kind of stuff that you would go in there and say, okay, I'm just conquering this because there's obviously nobody here, and so I'm going to take it. It's mine. It's mine now. That is the solution right there. And it solves a lot of these problems, by the way. That's one of the reasons why people had kids, was to keep the legacy going, and on and on and on. That's why you did stuff like this. So I'm just telling you, like that, it is not an easy conversation, and there's a lot to it, a lot to unpack. And concept of ownership is one of those things that has been debated, by the way, for thousands of years. This is not a new conversation, by the way. The Greeks, the Romans, you name it, they've all had this conversation. And it's a big conversation.